Hey you guys, it's Superstar0717. I had a pretty decent FNM. It was really interesting. There was a lot of tribal going on at my FNM. Usually, it's usually, like the red deck wins, your wolf run ramp decks, your humans with spirit deck, your tokens. But similar to after Innistrad, there was a bunch of people playing different tribal decks. We had some vampires with Olivia of Alderaan and Drogskull Captain, um, or maybe some, I don't know, the vampire that gives him +1/+1 on first strike. And there was a lot of spirits. There was still no werewolves. I was still the only werewolf player. But the spirit deck was actually pretty neat. I got to see it run. It got well, I played him for 4th and 3rd place, and I beat it, but it was really interesting how it worked. Hexproof on flying creatures is ridiculous, especially when it gives it to all of your flying creatures, and so that made it really difficult for me to play around it. But luckily, the guy that gives him the hexproof doesn't have it himself, so it was, after I got rid of him, then I started picking up the spirits. But with that being said, I took 3rd place. I would have liked to have my matchup be the other way around, where I got to play the guy that he played, because I knew I would have gotten into the finals if I would have gotten to play against Delver. And even though I didn't, Delver won 1st place. 2nd place was Red Deck Wins. 3rd place was Werewolves, and 4th place was Spirit Tribal. And so with that being said, I have made some changes to the deck to reflect what I noticed in the tournament. This is my first FNM with the deck. I already won one pack tournament with this deck. And so we're running pretty much the same creature lineup: 4 Wolfbitten, 4 Waif, 2 Gatstaf, 4 Mayor, 2 Daybreak, 3 Kruins, 4 Immerwolf, and 4 Huntmasters. For the spells, I was running at the time 3 Moonmist, 2 Brimstone, 4 FMRs, and the land hasn't changed, with the exception of 2 Kessig Wolf runs, and for that I dropped a forest and a mountain. So that brings our count to 8 forests, 6 mountains, and 2 Kessig Wolf runs. Now, after the tournament, and from what I saw, I'm going to make this change right here. I'm going to take out the 2 Brimstone Volleys for this guy right here. I'm going to test this guy out. Chandra's Phoenix just destroyed me in that matchup. The recursion was just too fast, and the haste was really what put it over the top for me. That, and they just, slowly pick off your creatures. And it was interesting, and there was a card that the Red Deck Wins player was playing. It was Increasing Vengeance. Now, Increasing Vengeance says copy target instant or sorcery spell you control. If Increasing Vengeance was cast from a graveyard, copy that spell twice. So I got wrecked pretty hard by this card, and it was pretty annoying. Getting hit for 15 with a Brimstone Volley is just retarded. He was able to draw out the game long enough where he had enough mana to do it by slowly picking off all my creatures, and then he just copied it twice for the win. Obviously, FMRs were doing work, but when they're slowly picking off, you really have to choose which ones are worth sacking this for and which ones aren't. And obviously, Red Deck Win has always been, for me at least, a pretty difficult matchup, just because it's really hard for your creatures to stick. And so with that being said, Red Sun Zenith takes care of the Chandra's Phoenix problem. It's also a nice finisher. You can do the same thing as Brimstone Volley with it. Maybe even hit for a little bit more, like 6 or 7 damage with it, depending on how late in the game you are. And also, I like it because early game you can, nuke a Mirran Crusader, shuffle it back in your deck. Later on, draw it, finish the game with it, things like that. Shuffling into the deck is pretty useful. It's never been a problem when I had it in the last version of the deck before Dark Ascension. I actually really liked it a lot, and it finished me quite a bit of games. And being able to, just turn 2 if you have no play, Red Sun Zenith, things like, that one vampire, the 1/1 that's unblockable to humans. That guy really messes up the deck. Man, I totally just lost his name. But that guy's really a real problem for the deck, and obviously Brimstone Volleying it, you can't really Brimstone Volley at turn 2 because you don't have the mana for it. And And so Red Sun Zenith, I'm going to try it out and see how I like it. Now, in the pack opening that I got, I've got 2 or 3 packs. I pulled this card. Let me see if I can find it. Here we go. I pulled one of these, Curse of Bloodletting. Now, it says if a source would deal damage to an enchanted player, it deals double that damage to the player instead. Now, with this slot, if this doesn't work out, next thing I'm going to test is Curse of Bloodletting. If you can drop this on turn 5 and you have a pretty sweet board, maybe some flip stuff, some bonuses, and an FMR to give you some trample, suddenly that 2 trample damage that you're putting in with each creature, or 2 or 3 trample damage, and the one that's getting in directly, now it becomes 4 or 6 trample damage from one creature, and the guy that's getting in is getting, maybe it's a 4/4, it's going to become an 8 damage to that player. I miss having Overrun in the deck, and I think this card is almost a pseudo Overrun, in the sense that you're putting in a lot amount of damage, but you can do it over multiple turns. Another card that I thought was interesting, after I pulled this, I kind of looked it over during the spoilers and everything. I saw this card, Curse of Stalked Prey. Now, this card I think is going to be pretty decent if you can make it work. I haven't figured out how to make it work. You probably need to run at least 3 of them to draw it consistently enough to drop it turn 2. But having +1/1 counters on everything is pretty nice. Swinging with a Waif on turn 2, then gets a +1 counter, and then, just go from there. I think it'd be pretty interesting. Maybe even run some Tezzeret's Gambits for Proliferate. But obviously, that's a whole different deck. I just thought it would be pretty interesting after I saw that first curse. I went ahead and looked up all the other ones and saw how they worked. Now, I think you've seen the deck. I changed the sideboard up a little bit. I took out Fresh Meat. I think it was more of a fun card for casual Magic, but I never really got a huge benefit out of it, since I usually always had an FMR, and if I didn't, they were only nuking a creature. It wasn't worth tapping out 4 mana or saving 4 mana just to get a 3/3 token. So I'm still running 2 Gnaw to the Bone. I was unfortunate enough not to see this at all against my Red Deck Wins matchup. I feel if I did, I would have done a little bit better. 2 Arc Trail, pretty good card. Put in a lot of work for me. 2 Naturalize. I think I upped this from 1. Being able to destroy enchantments are really nice, especially against Angelic Destiny and things like that. And after the pack tournament, I definitely added the second one because Angelic Destiny is such a huge card. Incinerate still did pretty well. Now I added 2 Blasphemous Acts. Against tokens, there was never really a point where my board got too clogged, or their board at least got too clogged where I couldn't, block effectively. But I feel if that ever happened, obviously those tokens have summoning sickness. Being able to nuke their field is pretty big, especially when you're running FMRs and you can instantly recover from that. You play this for maybe 1 red, because by then usually they'll have more than 7 or 8 creatures out. And then you just sack this and you have everything comes back tapped, which is a really nice play to make. I mean, obviously they can drop a Blade Hold or something, or some form of recovery, but if you have your Kruin Outlaw flipped during your next on-tap step, you'll have so many attackers and they literally probably won't be able to block with anything. The play worked out pretty well in the old iteration of the deck, doing that. And so I'm going back to this, obviously. This could be a Ratchet Bomb if you'd like, but I just like the ability, the one-sided nuke effect, pretty much, with FMR. Now, I told you guys I was going to run the 3rd Gatstaf Shepard, and I'm still doing that. Card puts in a crazy, crazy amount of work against a lot of decks. And it's just a great card. Some people would rather have the 3rd Daybreak Ranger, and that's completely up to you. But I like the 3rd Gatstaf. But either play is pretty decent. Now, after seeing that Spirit deck, and after, just playing against a lot of flyers all day, I needed a good way to remove them. Now, with Hexproof, you can't target them directly, but Corrosive Gale is a pretty decent way to get rid of them, especially because, obviously Arc Trail is good, and Daybreak Ranger is good, but you're only hitting 1 at a time. You need to nuke them all. And this guy was pretty decent. In a testing that my friend had done, he said this card was pretty good. I think I had some subscribers also suggest this card. So good for you guys on that one. But Corrosive Gale, I've always wanted to play with the card, but I never really found a way. And I always thought it was spell speed was a little slow, being a sorcery. But with that being said, I'm going to give it a try, against the Drogskull Captain deck. I saw a Wizards deck tech online from Honolulu, and the guy explained it pretty well. He said Corrosive Gale against that deck is pretty much just like a one-sided Day of Judgment. It just nukes pretty much their whole field, and then you can swing for the win the next turn. And I like that a lot. So I'm going to try out 2 Corrosive Gales, and of course a 2 Ancient Grudge. Now, Ancient Grudge is a really good card. I wish I could run the 3rd one, and if I was going to, I'd take out the Gatstaf. But there was a couple Birthing Pod players. I didn't get to play any of them. But I think Birthing Pod is just, I mean, with the new Undying cards, just the amount of like utility that Birthing Pod has right now is just ridiculous. I mean, just being able to sack like a Strangleroot guy, make it come back alive, and then you get, you know, a creature off of that is just ridiculous. And so, you know, being able to have this against Ancient Grudge and against tokens and against red deck wins for their shrines, it's a pretty good play. So that's pretty much the entire deck. I didn't want to make this video too long, but there's just a quick overview if you want to check that out. I'll type up a deck list for you guys, and sometime later in the week I have a bunch of homework, but sometime later in the week I'll write up a full match report and let you guys know how each match went. So thanks for watching, guys. Give this video a thumbs up if you like it. I really appreciate it. Make sure to comment any suggestions. I do take a lot of you guys' suggestions, you know, moving forward. I think somebody suggested the Corrosive Gale. A different player suggested the Gatstaf. And those all have worked out pretty decent for me. So keep suggesting. I like to hear what you guys have to say. I'm not the best player in Magic, so it's always good. Actually, real quick, let me just show you guys some of the graphs. There's the mana curve right there, color distribution. It's more of a 50-50 now. And the color mana symbols. So thanks for watching, guys. Rate, comment, subscribe.